What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast, where we help 9-to-5ers create more impact, income, and influence outside their jobs. And today I got a special guest with me, man. This is literally my personal trainer, and we're not gonna be talking about personal training today. We're gonna be talking about the mindset around. I told you guys I was running this half marathon, and we just completed it, and I was able to do it with the help of my guy Ozzie here. So Oz, before we get into the episode, let the people know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of kick it off.
So my name is Ozzie. Go by Ozanitis on Instagram. Little plug for my handle. But I kind of got into fitness about in 2011. And one day I woke up, I was 30 pounds overweight, and I figured out from a photo, and I was like, why ain't nobody tell me I was fat? And then at that moment, I locked in, and then I had a couple ups and downs, and we actually had a slight conversation, and it kind of described our journeys. Like when people fall off the wagon, when you go back to it, the time off the wagon gets shortened. And up until 2011 to about 2016, I was up and down, up and down. And then at that point, I got certified as a trainer, and I knew that I wanted to help people learn from the mistakes that I made. And then I started doing fitness consulting, training in person, taught some Group X classes, picked up boxing when I lived out in LA for a bit, and now I'm transitioning more to online coaching. And since I am a new runner who have ran a few races, I'm trying to help other people balance the wanting to run for good cardiovascular health and also maintain their muscle mass and aesthetics.
That's perfect right there. And one of the things you had helped me do was, and I'll talk about a little bit about the race. We'll talk about the race and what that entailed. 13 miles, half marathon.
13.1. Let's not rob ourselves.
13.1 miles. We're not going to rob ourselves from that. And you guys listen to the episode. Oz was actually on episode number 15. So you guys could go back and check out that episode. He goes into his background about everything he just said in a lot more detail. But I came to him when I said I wanted to run. So I think you guys listen to that episode where I said I want to run a half marathon this year, and I told you guys why I wanted to do that. I wanted to get into running, but I needed a hard enough goal that was going to keep me consistent. And I hit up Oz. I was like, yo, what do I need to do to make this happen? And you came to me and was like, yo, we're going to lock in, and your biggest challenge is going to be staying healthy. Why do you feel like that was the case?
Well, I know that we're friends because we have a similar personality. We take the I'm going to run through the wall approach. The problem is you only need to run through the wall on race day. Any other time is premature, and I've learned from my own mistakes of taking how I built myself as far as strength and thought that I can do that with running. But when we're older, we are deconditioned. There were just a lot of things that I knew we were going to run into, and I also knew that I didn't want to give you a plan. I wanted to talk to you because I need to know how you feel, because I know if I say, hey, go run 6 miles and you hurt, you would have went and did it.
Yeah.
But if before I gave you any direction, I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? What's hurting? What's your plan for your run? It was more of a conversation. And I think that, to me, that's what coaching is, because you can have the best athlete, but if you don't know that their back is hurting or their knee is hurting, and you tell them to go run a play or go run a drill, now you're putting them at risk of not being able to play in the game that might be most important. And I think that is, if you don't get injured, you'll eventually get good. If you get injured, you have setbacks. The setbacks isn't the goal. Whatever you're trying to do that leads you to get setback, that's not the goal. Now, if you get injured on race day, that sucks too, but at least you completed the goal.
Yeah, with that one, you mentioned the coaching aspect of it. Now, a lot of us were like, hey, listen, I'm going to get up, I'm going to run, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do my own thing. But you guys know us in the Hard Duck household. We always want to go to experts that, people that have done the thing that we want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I said was, instead of me trying to figure this out, I know you just ran a full marathon, which is 26?
26.2. It was actually 26.44 because of how I ran the course, the zigzagging.
So I know you just ran a full marathon, and that motivated me. And that's another thing, too, like being around people who are motivating you to get better. So, you, our friend Zell, our friend Sai, you guys ran a marathon. And I said, after that, I need to get back into running. I think that same day I told you guys, you motivated me to get back into running. But the coaching aspect was super important because you've done the thing, right? And I didn't want to lose weight. I wanted to still lift. And you was like, I've done the thing. I'm going to show you how I did the thing. Why is coaching so important, especially when it comes to fitness?
The coaching is so important because you're going to have beginner blind spots. That person has experience, so it's not anecdotal. It's not something that they read in a book. It's an experience that they're actually having. So as I was mentioning to you before we started recording, every issue he had during this race, I had already. So I already knew, like, okay, this is what needs to be done. And when I looked at the mileage I had for my marathon, I ran almost 100 more miles than the two people I ran the marathon with, and they were healthier than me. So I was like too rigid with making sure I had all my long runs in.
So that mean you was like overtraining?
I wasn't overtraining. I wasn't giving myself grace. I think my training, the whole process of only training for a marathon is 12 weeks is asimine. Like, no one should.
Wait, hold on. Let's go back. I forgot you own. So I'm gonna put it in context. Can we put this in context? Yeah. So I went from 0 to half marathon in 12 weeks. You went from 0 to full marathon in 12 weeks. And I said I needed more time. You are absolutely nuts for doing that. What would make you do that? Why would you do that?
So I think my dad used to say this to me as a kid. He said, all you got is your word and your name. I committed. And I had to stand on principles that's what I got to do. So it's funny how I even got into running. So when I lived in LA, I would do 5 miles on the weekends at Santa Monica Beach. Beautiful, wind perfect, little tailwind to push you forward. And then when I moved back to Dallas, I wasn't running anymore.
It's too hot.
It was too hot, and it gets too cold.
There's so no scenic routes and
100, and it's flat.
No beach.
So I had a coworker. She was saying she's gonna do a half marathon. And then there was a guy who worked with me. He was like, "Oh, Ozzie's so fit. He should do it too." I'm like, "No." Just like, "Come on, Ozzie. This would be great team building." I'm new to a company. I'm playing the game, so I thought I needed to do it. So I got lucky. She left. So then our friend Denzel was like, "Hey, let's do a marathon." And I was like, "Bro, you're bugging. Like, we should just do a half."
Yeah.
He was like, "You could do a half right now," and I was like, "He's right. I've ran and walked 10 miles." But I didn't realize how big of a difference that additional 13 miles is.
I mean, it's literally double the distance.
It's literally double, but it's not like a 5K to a 10K or 3 miler to a 6 miler. So at that point, I was like, oh, I can do it. I'm listening to David Goggins books on every long one. Sarah Jake's Sermon Master. Like, I'm so dialed in. I'm like delusionally dialed in to the point where I think I can just increase my mileage, Then on my 19-mile run, I injured myself on mile 8. But I got David Goggins playing, and I'm like, I'm going to keep running. So after being able to tap into that savage bag, I never want anyone to have to tap into that until before race day. Yeah. And I knew that once you got there, no matter what body showed up, you would be able to finish. I didn't want you to take the approach I took for training, because then I had to run the race with the Steph Curry ankle braces. All jokes aside, like, I literally could not flex my ankle on the day of the race. I probably shouldn't have ran the race. But what I did was I showed myself I can do more than I thought, even though I was ill-prepared. So I had to do the dumb thing to learn how to help people do the smart thing.
Man, you ran with an ankle brace and you couldn't move. So you're running with essentially with a boot on.
Basically, like, so my foot was like a club. So if your foot's supposed to flex, like, my foot was hitting the ground like this every step for 26 miles.
Damn.
And it took another 6 months to be able to run without any type of compression on my ankle after it was over.
So you got hurt training.
Yep.
And then you got to the marathon and you ran it hurt.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, I'm going to keep this running thing going, because you're still running today.
The reason I don't want to let something defeat me. It's an inanimate concept of running. Like, if you're ill prepared, that's why things defeat you, because you're ill prepared. So I was like, if I would have been prepared as I am now and I ran into the same issues, then I might have been a little defeated. Mm-hmm. But it was actually encouraging knowing that I did that without knowing everything that I know now. And I kind of can be obsessive with information. So I started to dial into, I didn't know about the hybrid athlete before I started running.
What's a hybrid athlete?
The hybrid athlete, basically, I don't really like the term, but it's basically just an athlete, someone who runs and lifts. And once I figured out how to not lose weight and run, I was like, oh, this is the code I've been trying to crack for forever. Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't do cardio because I don't want to lose muscle mass. But it's just doing enough research and understanding your body enough to test and try and do things, to keep doing things. Like, all right, this didn't work, I'm going to try this again. So in the midst of me running, I kept dealing with issues. And as I was learning, I was like, oh, this is similar to business. This is similar to relationships. You try something, you take notes, you do an after action report, and then you go back. And that's why I like running, because I don't like it. And there's no carrot at the end of the stick. Mm-hmm. Every run's hard. Every run suck. And even when you run a race, it's people who was smoking me. Like, literally, when we ran the half, there was a marathon runner who had passed me. I was like, all right, I'm letting too many of these marathoners pass me. And I was like, all right, I got to focus in to make sure. And that was my little competitive streak during the race. But I think that running a race is literally everyone's running your own race. And it's not something you can beat, and you can't cheat running. There's no steroids for it. There's no special supplements. You have to put in the work. You have to put your feet on the ground. And I feel like I've said this before. With things that are fair and equitable, I'm going to always support. Whether somebody got 10 million or $2, when you toe that line,
it don't matter.
It don't matter. That 13.1 to 13.1.
And you ran with your father. And what was super dope to me was that when you're running with your pops, how old is your pops?
My pop's 59. He'll be 60 in December.
Your pops is 59. He'll be 60 in December. And he just ran his first half marathon. He's not a runner currently. Mm-hmm. He's probably running now. He might start running some more. And he went from 0 to running a half marathon. And when we got to the starting line, it was crazy because he was like, yeah, I'm too old to be out here. And I'm like, you're going to see people that are older than you out here probably running a full marathon. Mm-hmm. I saw this guy, he was like 6'5", maybe like super in shape running a marathon. And he was running with this little lady. She was probably like 75, and they was running that full marathon together. And your father was like, when he said that he's like, I'm probably too old to be out here. I'm like, yo, this is your first run. You're gonna see people who are almost damn near, they're gonna like got 10 years on you, and they're gonna be like double your size or a quarter of your size.
And it's so funny. I was trying to give him that, like, you're gonna see people bigger, faster, slower, older.
Yeah.
You have to run your own race. You have to stay focused. And really, it was a couple old people past us.
Yeah.
Older than him when we was running. And he was like, really? I was like, listen, stay in your own lane. Just focus on you, because at the end of the day, you in your own body, and you gotta run this race. And also to echo what you said about you being inspired. My dad was inspired. My dad came to pick me up after the race. I was broke up after the marathon. And he still was encouraged. And this is the most consistent I've seen my father be. As far as like working out, and he just completed his PhD last year, and now he's running a half marathon. I'm like, yo, my dad really leveling up. Late
PhD and a half marathon.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean.
Some of us don't even know our dads out there. Like, his dad out here doing it.
So like, I was super proud. That was like one of the best father-son moments. And like, you know, he lost 10 pounds. I know he was a little nervous. He went to the doctor the day before the race to make sure everything was up and up. You know what I mean? And I'm really proud. And then he texted me this week and said, next year I'm gonna do the 26.2. So
okay. He could do that by the end of the year if he wanted to.
He could, but you know, he gonna baby step it. I respect it.
Now that's crazy, man. And I remember my first run was back in like 2012 or something like that, half marathon. And your goal, and I think you kept reminding me throughout my entire training, we were talking about running your own race. I kept comparing myself to myself back then. I was like, yo, I ran the half marathon with no problem. I looked at my splits. They was like 9-minute miles. But that was also 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I kept comparing myself to myself 10 years ago, and that was my biggest challenge when I started training. And I kept coming to you like, yo, I need to be able to do this because I did it before. But you kept saying like, listen, where you are today is not where you used to be. You're a completely different person, completely different body. You got to be ready for that. So why do you think that type of mindset was so important throughout this whole training regimen? Because I see it all the time when it even comes to just business coaches. Like, yo, you're not who you were, but then also you're not everybody around you.
I think so basically there's a concept called the contrast theory, that we notice things based on how different they are. For example, if we were to raise the temperature in a room by 1 degree, we won't notice the temperature is changing in the room until we get to the point where we notice. And there's a stark difference of who we are now at 30 plus versus who we were at 20 plus. At one point, I remember I ran a 6-minute mile. Somebody's gonna need to come scrape me up off the ground if I try to run a 6-minute mile right now. So I think it's just understanding like your life has changed. I've been in car accidents that affected my hips and my body. I also became a heavy weightlifter. I'm also 20 more pounds approximately than what I was when I graduated college. Obviously, I have more muscle, but the body is not the same. And also the amount of time we spend sitting down. We also don't sleep as much as we used to when we were younger. And I think that what happens is you think that the previous you was the better you. Yeah. But the story is better with the current you. To say all the things that we have going on and we're doing what we're doing is more of a more relatable to people than saying I sleep 10 hours a day and I'm a full-time runner. No disrespect to the full-time runners, but they sleep 8 hours a day, take a 2-hour nap, then sleep another 8 hours. Like I'm lucky if I get 8 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's important to understand that be here now, be where your feet are. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're running a race is be where your feet are. And the ego's gonna flare up. It happened to me during a race too. Like at one moment I was like, man, we should pick up the pace. But I'm like, no, the goal is for him to finish mentally strong and to not be to cramp or injure. Like, it's like you can always focus on another metric in your journey. It's like, oh, this is the most consistent I've been. You can look at your average steps or your average calories burned. It's like we get to choose what we focus on. And what I notice is because as I'm working with you, I was like, I don't want him to get injured and be discouraged and say, I'm not meant to run anymore or I'm too old for this. So I was like, okay, how can I make sure he stay healthy? And these are all things I had to implement for myself. Like if my feet hurt, don't go run, hop on a bike, hop on a Stairmaster. Like those are things like there's 1A, 1B, 1C, so you to know that you're not slacking. I think one of the things for me, I feared being a lazy person. So when I wasn't in a position to, or wasn't in the best condition to do things, I'm always kind of sometimes fearful of the lazy kid that I used to be to rise again. And I think that because you're so good at what you do in your business, you want to translate, but there is a maturation process that happens with running. We'll get to the point where you probably can run every day with no problem. But right now, that's not where you are. And just think about when you first started the business, you know, making courses or you're coaching or you're doing episodes and not really knowing what you're doing. Now you're surgical with it. Yeah. And I think that's because you have the cliche 10,000 hours in. And I know I don't have the 10,000 hours of running in, but I was like, I'll never not run again, and I'm not going to let this defeat me.
Why do you think running is so important? Because you've been lifting. When I was in college, I was lifting. I never ran. Even when I tried out for the football team back in my first college, I never ran. I never had a problem with running. It was just never part of what we did, unless you ran track. I always lifted. So why do you think running is so important, especially at this stage in your life?
I think running is important because it's spiritual. I think it's spiritual in the sense that there is no winning or losing when you go on the runs. There's no crowd cheering for you. There's no congratulations. It's a moment for you to be in your mobile office.
That's the only time you're truly by yourself.
Only time you by yourself. And the chosen hard is the only thing that you actually have control over. Because everything else in your life, you're at the mercy of your environment, your family. And we all have to answer somebody, whether it be our parents, our kids. We're constantly being pulled. When you choose to do something, you can at least hang your hat on the fact that I chose to go on this run. So how much ever you smite mile 3 or mile 8, that was a chosen hard that you choose. And I think that that's how you keep things in perspective, is that when you choose hard, when hard hits you, you can kind of tap into that same thing. Check in with your breath. Like Nipsey said, he said, focus on your breath is all about your breathing. That's what running's about, and that's what life's about. If you check your pulse rate, you look at your pulse rate when you're rushing to work, I guarantee it's like you're doing a little light jog. But if you take a moment, like, okay, if I'm late, I'm late. I'll get there when I get there. Let me get there safely. Take a deep breath. That's important. It's just like when you're on mile 1, you're like, man, I got 10 more miles to go. Just focus on your breathing. Let the breathing, like the time you was listening to the metronome while you was running. It gave you something consistent to focus on. Even the feet of the sound of your feet hitting the pavement. It gives you an opportunity to focus that you don't have that opportunity because we have so much stimulus coming in nonstop. Text messages, alert. And I think that's why I believe that prayer, meditation, and running, the Holy Trinity. No disrespect if someone feels that's disrespectful, but that's what that feels like to me.
That metronome, I agree with you. Running, and that's why I used to love running back in the day, that was the only time I was truly by myself. Even though I was running in Central Park, the atmosphere was amazing, but it was just me and the pavement, just running step by step. And when I started running out here, and I was training, and I put the metronome was literally just a beat. I listened to a beat for 30 minutes. It wasn't an instrumental. It was just, and I'm making that sound so that you guys can understand what it actually sounded like. And I did that for 30 minutes. Now, that could be I posted, I said, could you run to this for 30 minutes? Somebody was like, that's mind-boggling. But for me, it didn't listening to a podcast, listening to music, that's all being around other people. Mm-hmm. I was listening to that beat. It wasn't even instrumental. It was just knocking. Every couple seconds, I was forced to focus on myself. And I thought that was like probably one of my most calm runs too.
And one thing running does, it teaches you to control your state on demand, right? If you're having a bad day, At first, you might be bombarded or hit with a bad day. After you've been having a bad day for 3 hours, it's not a choice. Making a decision at like, are you going to do what you said you're going to do? Are you going to complete this run? Mm-hmm. Are you going to figure out a way to make it a game? So, for example, during the marathon, not this half marathon, but during the marathon, I cramped on mile 4, and I was heartbroken. I had ran 20 miles straight 2 weeks prior, but I came out the gate too hot. So then I said, okay, let's make this a game. Run until the cramp come back. that was the name of the game.
Wait. So the cramp went away. Dude, what happens when you cramp during a run? So you stop, you stretch.
So what happens is your muscles are not conditioned for the duration of time at that speed you're running. That 20-mile run, I ran at about a 12 or 40 minute or so pace, nonstop. I came out the first 4 miles at like a 10:20. That's 2 minutes plus faster than what I had been practiced running.
That's your body saying, nah, you wilding right now.
100%. I also, I got into tutorial hell about what to do before Waist Week. So, like, I wasn't eating my normal meals. I was trying to carb load. So, my body was not prepared. And also, too, I took a caffeine pill that I just started using the caffeine pill a week before. It was 200 milligrams. That spiked my heart rate, plus the adrenaline of the environment. So that means that even if that wasn't a too fast pace, my heart rate was too high. So now you start dealing with your lactate threshold, which is the point where your body is now creating too much lactate in the muscle, and that's what causes the cramp.
So your eating was off.
Yep.
You taking new shit before the run. Mm-hmm. So and you already starting faster than you normally would.
Yes.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
And once again, I literally went through every emotion. You know how they talk about like the 5 stages of grief? That's what the marathon was.
Talk about that experience too with so you caught a cramp at mile 4.
Yep.
How do you complete? Because you still finished.
Yes.
So how do you? What was the emotional cycle as you're going through? So the first one is, oh my, agony. You're probably defeated. You're disappointed at mile 4.
So
you still got
what I knew is
19?
my body was failing me, my lungs was good, and my mental was good. So I was like, all right, 2 out of the 3, that's 66%. It's almost a C. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I got 2 out of the 3. So I told myself, I was like, yo, bro, if you quit, this is going to haunt you until you have the opportunity to redeem yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want to tell someone, yeah, you know, I almost ran the marathon. I was not trying to have that conversation. So I said, okay, walk. And I walk like Michael Myers. You know how in the movies Michael Myers be catching people walking? Mm-hmm. You like, that's how I walk. Because I had trained prepared to walk and run in that way if I had to. So I'm walking dumb fast. I'm like 14-minute miles walking. Wow. Like I'm moving. So then I was like, okay, the moment the cramp go away, because when you train, you start to experience cramps. It's like, all right, it's like hiccups that happen in life. It's like, all right, you just came from vacation. You know that like after vacation, you normally had this 3-day little lull period where you're not productive or you're not working out. Now you got to figure out, how can I take that 3 day and turn to 1? I was like, okay, what can I do to get rid of this cramp? I was like, okay, let me slow down my walking pace, wait till the cramp dissipates, and then run again. And then at that point, I made it a game. I was like, okay, let's see how far I can run before the cramp. I was like, oh, cool, you ran 0.5 that time. And I just started like playing games with myself to make myself realize, like, you have to finish this. There was only one moment where I thought about quitting. It was mile 23 and a blister burst on my feet. Ooh. I had never had a blister on my toe in that manner before, and it burst. Literally, the only reason I call it Uber, because I had to go back to the start line to get my stuff. So I'm like, I gotta finish now.
That sounds painful and absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it was rough, but I think what running has done is it taught me to have the ability to focus, and it's not personal and it's business. Running is not something that I'm jumping for joy to do. It is a business meeting that I have with myself. And I think that what I learned from that, like, when you would talk to me about business pre-running the marathon, I was kind of artsy-fartsy a little bit, and I was just like, yeah, man, you know, I wanted to feel right. Running never feels right. So once you realize, like, you can still get your goal accomplished without feeling like doing it.
Yeah.
And then you'll do yourself into a better feeling. That's what running does. I tell people all the time I hate running. It's like, why do you run? I was like, because how I feel after. It is gratification to me that I am a man of my word. I did what I said, and I did what a high percentage of people aren't willing to do. And sometimes in this world where you're constantly comparing yourself to what someone else is doing, when it comes to the mindset and the physicality, I feel like I can go one-to-one with anybody in the world. And that's something that I built myself. You don't know where someone started from in their finances or their relationship. But when it comes to physicality, that is a very equitable starting point. So that is a way for me to keep myself and self-love myself in the midst of all this comparison here to there to there to there. So that's why I love fitness, because I feel like it's equitable, and running just takes it to another level. I'm 185 with short legs. I should not be running marathons.
No.
Or I shouldn't be running at all, because the anthropometrics, which is the distance between your elbow to your finger or your foot to your knee, is not in favor of running. But that's why I do it, because someone who looks like me, who lifts weight, someone like you, see like, oh, this is our stature kind of similar. Like our like base weight is similar, 170, 168, 175. And you used to be running. When I met you, you was running. I wasn't running.
Yeah.
I was doing it for like steady state cardio to get leaner. And now it's a full circle moment again. We both like, now we like, okay, we can hop in races together. We can do things. And I think that the camaraderie this create is unmatched.
Now we got a run coming up soon. This episode is also, before we keep going, this episode is sponsored by the Survey Blog. The Survey Blog. If you guys need a side hustle, you guys don't know, we had $114,000 of debt, and one of the ways that we were able to pay off this debt was actually doing surveys alongside of our cleaning business. The Survey Plug helps you create income, so about $100 an hour doing surveys absolutely from home, unless you want to go into the office. Either way, it's $100 per hour. I would take that. So check out thesurveyplug.com. Use the code HEARTRIMONY or HUSTLE, whatever we decide it is. $100 off, and the link will be in the show notes. So shout out to the Survey Plug for sponsoring this episode. So you just mentioned the actual camaraderie that running has created. Now we have a running chat. Now we're doing runs together. Now I feel like we got a closer bond because it goes outside of what we normally would be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And the things we normally would be doing, going out, drinking, eating, stuff like that. But now it's like we getting up on a Saturday morning paying $100, $150 to do a damn run.
Yeah, and I think the dope thing about it is like you're the net sum of the people you're around, and also the accountability through conversation, right? So I feel like we're always programming ourselves with the things we consume and the people we talk to. And I feel like for you, when you decided to not drink, I had a phase where I went without drinking, and now I don't really drink either. So now I'm like, I can see my friends without having to party and drink. Mm-hmm. We can go for a run together. And, like there's like little memes going on that when you get in your 30s, people do this. I'm like, if the relationship is a net positive, I'm for it. If it's a neutral, I got to love you as a person. If it's a net negative, I can't do it. Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, time is the one resource that we don't get back. And you also don't feel crazy when your friends are engaging in the positive things for you. You know how many people are like, oh, you're crazy from doing this. You're crazy. I was like, I'm not crazy. I just want something more for myself. Like, you're always reaching for opportunity to validate your human experience. Yes, I'm enough. Yes, I'm loved. Yes, I don't need to do another thing. And I can quote unquote say I've given life, all that I have. But at the same time, it's like having a cookie jar. The cookies get stale. You got to swap those cookies out. You can't be talking about what you did when you was in high school or when you was in college. It's like, what have you done recently? For you, you have a daughter. I have a daughter. You started a business. You ran a half marathon. I went from entrepreneur to a corporate career. And that's another piece about you left the corporate space, but I can't control when they promote me, but I can control if I get up to go run. So they always ask me at work, why do you run? I was like, because it's one of the few things in my life I have complete autonomy over. Yeah. And we don't want to believe that we don't have autonomy, but when I get out on the road, I'm at the mercy of the traffic. When I go to the bank, I'm at the mercy of the line. When I'm working with clients, I'm at the mercy of my clients. And not to sound like in a deprecating or a less than way, the reality is the things that you do have control over, push yourself to get more from yourself, and everything else feels more manageable after that.
So this is something I wanted for you probably more than, I think I'm the friend that gives advice, but I'm going to give you enough to see what you do with it, because I was like, I don't want to be the overbearing friend. Now, you let me know if I am sometimes, but my thing about you is like, I love the fact that you do this, and I know you're very knowledgeable in the space, but on the actual training side or consulting side, I'm like, yo, there's so much more room for you in this space. And I'm like, it's missing. I've never seen someone that looks like me, that has a stature similar to me, that also runs and lifts, that also breaks this down in a way we don't have to stop your entire life. Like, you've never once said, well, you got to stop drinking, or you got to stop, I don't smoke, but you got to stop smoking. It's like, yo, do it in moderation, which is not a normal thing for a personal trainer to say to people. So why do you think your methods are a little different than others?
I think my methods is different from others because it's like, if you won't do it for a lifetime, don't do it for a day. And
What do you mean by that?
so when I say that, it's like if I said I'm training for a race and I completely cut all communication with my family, my friends, my significant other, that's not sustainable. And I think when things aren't sustainable, people hate it. So you passed my info to one of your friends, and I told him this is a structure and a framework, meaning that it's not the house, it's just a blueprint. You have to have wiggle room because you don't want to smite what you're doing. And I think what I learned is everyone's not going to have the same amount of time, the same sleep schedule. So you have to customize a percentage-wise, right? If they're doing the right thing 85 to 90% of the time, they'll get to their goals. And also, none of us are professional athletes, so we don't have to work out 3 times. The Mamba mentality race day, yes. The Mamba mentality during training, that might not work because you're going to burn out. You're going to have mental fatigue, and then you're probably not going to continue. So I think the reason it's important for is like it's integration, because integration turns into a lifestyle versus diet or a strict training regimen. I never tell people what to eat. I tell them why they should eat it. Or I never tell you how much to run. I'm like, hey, listen, increase by 5 minutes. Now that means, okay, I'm not feeling it today. You might run a less distance, but you still ran 5 minutes more. Yeah. I think it's like, if I gave this to someone who started today, would this be something that they would feel like they could do, even if they couldn't in that moment? Does it feel like Mount Rushmore, or does it feel like it's just a little small anthill that they can jump over? You want people to feel like it's an anthill they can jump over, but have the work ethic as if they're going to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah, that's crazy you said that, because like my friend, he was like, yo, like, he's like, Oz is different when it comes to this training stuff. And I was like, that's why I connected you, because I know your lifestyle, and I know you've gone from not eating this to not eating that. And I'm like, unless that's sustainable, which he's done it for the course of time, but it's like, he's not going to tell you to stop doing those lifestyle choices. If those are your lifestyle choices and you like, I'm going to do rice and peas and stuff like that, he's like, all right, cool. That's going to be the focus, but we're not going to eat it as much.
Right.
You're going to focus on maybe having a smaller portion or changing this, changing that. So,
and another thing too, sorry to interrupt you. I think that your family and your friends will be more supportive of the goal if the goal has a little bit of flexibility and you're reaching it. Because some people, they call it like monk mode, where you get so dialed in, so focused, where you barely talk to your family, you don't go out and eat, you don't go out and drink. Now your friends are looking at your goal as an adversary, because they want what's best for you that keeps them in your life.
Yeah.
So it's a way of finding middle ground to say, hey, bro, I'm gonna pull up tonight, but I got a 10-mile run in the morning. No one's gonna try to force you to drink if you say I got a 10-mile run in the morning.
Hold on. Do you think I want to push back on that a little bit? Do you think sometimes it's actually more beneficial for a person to go into full shell mode to get to their goals?
It depends on your personality type. If you are naturally a quote unquote, which I don't like these labels because they're relative. If you are an extrovert and you can go into monk mode and pop back out, I went into monk mode and never wanted to come back out. And right now, as we speak, I got a foam roller on the floor, a yoga mat, a lacrosse ball. Like, my life is so entrenched in wellness that sometimes it's hard for me to connect with people when I think there are things that are like very obviously not healthy for them, right?
Name one. You gonna say drinking?
I'm not gonna necessarily say drinking, just the mindset.
There's nothing positive about drinking.
There's zero positive about drinking. But what I will say is that I don't like when people have faulty thinkings about drinking, right? If I decide that faulty thinking is everything's in moderation, no, dog, that's poison. There is no, it's just poison. Now, I'd rather say, I know it ain't good for me, but I'm about to drink it.
Yeah.
I'd rather that approach, because you're at least acknowledging that you're not being delusional with yourself and saying that, oh, they say if you drink, well, you got to drink like 8 bottles of red wine to get the benefit.
Yeah.
It's some nonsensical number. But I also understand, like, who benefits from you drinking? The bars, the liquor companies, they're not thinking about
what's... department.
Exactly.
Uber, Lyft.
Right. And I say this, that businesses don't operate off of morality, they operate off legality. So if what they're doing is not illegal, they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. So when people go out and they have faulty mindsets about drinking, that's what bothers me. Not like, yeah, I know this ain't the best thing for me. And they don't have to say it to me, but just know deep down inside that's not the best thing for you. That's like me going to the gym and getting under 600 pounds and I've never squatted 400 pounds. That's just a poor choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone's like, oh, your life is at risk. Your life could be at risk while you're drinking. You don't know what's going to happen while you're out there. I think it's the mindset is like, it's overdone, but the mindset is the piece to me that's going to give you the ability to start, stop, and or keep going. So if you're out with your friends and you know that you can still, like, for example, Denzel is a great example. He can go to a company party and get up and run. I need 9 hours of sleep if I got something I need to do
it at 5 in the morning.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's certain people, but you have to assess and be honest with yourself and not fall into the comparison trap of trying to do what someone else is going to do. Because I've been running a little bit longer, like, this is one thing I had to do in the equation, right? Most people who run faster than me are A, lighter than me. 2, they have been running longer than me. I have 2 things working against me. So just by looking at that math equation, it's like, why are you even comparing yourself to these people? Also, people who drink regularly, they can have 3 drinks. I have 3 drinks as clip for me. I'm done the next day. You know what I mean? So it's just understanding where you are. And yes, you want the camaraderie, but I've learned that if Ant's like, hey, bro, let's go grab a drink. I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm not going to be able to drink with you, but we can grab coffee in the morning. I'm always going to provide that additional thing to let you know I do want to hang out with you, but it might not be in the way you want it to be. And when people are like, hey, do you drink? I drink internationally only. I'll drink on a trip, but I'm not going to the same pub that we've been going to for years to get, plastic.
Get hammered.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about me is like so I'm not as strong-willed as you and when it comes to that. So when I first stopped drinking, it was like I don't want to go out.
Yeah.
Janoka was like, we got these holiday parties, we got the Christmas parties, we got the family parties. I'm like, I do not want to go out because it's going to be. I don't think people understand how hard it is, especially when you first are not drinking. Yeah. How hard it is to be around people who are drinking because now you're annoyed, you're upset, you want to go. And I said, I need to be in monk mode until I could handle my urges or my cravings or understand, like, I don't need to drink. Yeah. So that was my thing. I was like, I need to go into my own shell for a little bit. I don't think anyone even noticed, but I was like, nah, I can't do that, or I can't do this. Or if I do this, I'm not going to be there for long. So I think there is like you said, the type of person. You have to know yourself. I know myself, and I know I may not give into temptation, but I don't want to be tempted to the point of annoyance where it's like, I might as well do it since I'm here. So that was like when I first stopped drinking. It was like, I'm going to go into monk mode for a couple weeks, understand it. And then it was like, okay, now it's only a problem when I'm at a huge event. Now I could be around friends and family. It's easy. Now then the challenge was I go to the club. It's like, okay, I don't want to be here, number 1. Number 2, I need a drink. And number 3, I was like, hey, what can I add into my life that kind of balances some of those things too? And I think balance is super important when you're trying to figure this out.
And I think the thing for me that helped me, I never met someone who was more successful or more fit to me in the way that I deemed to be successful that forced me to drink. Spiritual people or people who have really good dial-ins on their mental in a way that I do, they're not, because they're okay with you're not drinking while they're not drinking.
I don't need you to drink for me to have fun.
Exactly. Normally, people who are in better shape than me don't ask me to drink. So I started realizing, like, oh, it's a comfort thing for the person because you're reminding them that they're doing something they probably shouldn't be doing. So if you do it, you're complicit.
I feel better.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, I think there's I love this YouTube video. It's by Charlie Munger. It's called The 25 Cognitive Dysfunctions of Human Beings. I listened to it for about 2 weeks straight, and it literally outlines. It's called like the reciprocity principle. Someone does something for you, you somehow at a later date feel like you owe them. The granny principle. You say, "Hey, I'm gonna go run this 5 miles, and then I'm gonna eat the cookie." It's like delayed gratification.
I definitely did that.
So once, 100%. But once you start understanding that, like the way people interact is just like business, right? They say people have to see something 7 times before they buy, right? Like for example, with me. I don't want to sell anything to anybody, but I like stuff like this. If all my sell copy or my sell content was this, then I'm giving an opportunity for people to listen in on the thing. Yep. So I think the main thing is just really dissecting, and you don't need to be. Sometimes people say that you're overthinking. I think overthinking is when people say you're overthinking, it's a way for them to undermine your thought process, and they could be right. But there's certain situations where thinking through things thoroughly is going to work best for you long term. And that's why when you said what you said about like going and drinking, that was tough for me too. I started back drinking again because I moved to LA. I'm vegan. I don't know anybody. And I succumbed to the pressure. But in the midst of me starting to drink again, I remember I was at Rolling Loud with one of my friends who was a DJ. And they poured me this like big cup of vodka. I took 2 sips and was like, nah. But at that moment, I was like, all right, well, pick your spot. So now if I do drink, it's either A, on vacation, or 2 celebratory moments, and I always leave early. And sometimes I'm gonna hit you with the Irish goodbye. You might be like, "Oh, we see Oz, and now we don't see him no more." Because y'all know what I'm doing, because y'all gonna see it the next day in the morning when I'm. It's not like Oz left us to go to another club. Oz left because he's like, "This is a slippery slope. I don't want to end up drunk. I don't want to drive drunk. I don't want to leave my car here and have to Uber." And I think that when you get to a certain point, you build enough rapport with your friends and family, they charge it to your behavior and not your heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone doesn't pull up for me, I'm not like thinking like, oh, they don't like me like that, or they don't want to be with me. It's they're prioritizing themselves. They're not thinking about you, so they're not considering. They're just not thinking about you. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I'm in 100% control of every decision that I make. I feel very rarely do I feel out of control in the sense of like how I show up in the world.
Man, this has been enlightening, and I want to go back to the business side of what's the name of your fitness company? What's the name?
So I had a couple names, and I'm gonna tell you why I had a couple names, because it's just where I was, like where I am in my life, and like the name now is Wellness Nomad, and the reason it's Wellness Nomad is because I feel like I'm a constant seeker of information when it comes to wellness, and nomads move, and I don't hold tightly to any ideas that I currently have, because when I get new information, I'm responsible to change. And what I'm trying to do now is build out, educate people, not tell people what to do. And I haven't been able to figure that part out yet. I don't want to tell you what to eat. I want to teach you how to eat. So therefore, you don't need me. Hire me to fire me. Mm-hmm. I told your friend that you plugged me with, in 6 months, you shouldn't need me anymore. I don't have any new tricks to tell you. Now, if you need me for the accountability, that's a different story. I think that business itself, it's like ethical capitalism. I'm still trying to nail down what that feels like. And I'm sure you see it, right? There's trends that happen online where you feel like, oh, this is what's working, I got to do it. If it doesn't feel pure to me, I don't want to do it. That's why I have stints of where I'm in my bag, I'm posting, and then I feel myself like slipping into the trends. And then I'm like, there's no context with what I'm telling people. It's an opportunity to get them to engage with me, not give them fruit or water. Like, I like to think of myself as a well operator. I'm here with water if you need it, but you don't have to take it. So I haven't completely figured out how to the juxtaposition online with that, but that's where my heart is.
So I think you're selfish, bro, because there are people out there like myself, like our friend, who need you, and we only know about you because I'm a friend with you. There are thousands of people out there that probably could use you. There are people out there that could probably not even just use you in terms of the physical. It's just the mental, the mindset shift, the changes, just helping people be better overall individuals, overall thinkers when it comes to their physical, mental, spiritual health. But the problem is you're selfish. Why are you so selfish, man?
You know what? That's a great way to put it. And I think that, and I'm going to tell you why I'm selfish. You remember the Twitter era? Mm-hmm. Back in 08 and 09, where it was just reckless abandonment. And
I deleted all my tweets, so don't even go back to that Twitter account.
Look, like,
I changed my name to Anthony Hartzog. It was Rockstar before.
And that's how your name's still in my phone. Still to this day.
I changed that.
So you bring up a very interesting point, but I came from the era where we were know-it-alls before we knew anything. And now we're in the eras where there's a bunch of false prophets, bunch of crocodile tears, bunch of like... And my biggest thing is, I don't want someone to see me and associate me with other things that they see that is in the realm of me. So that is, I guess, quote unquote, why I'm selfish. Because I believe that if I'm pure in heart, pure in intention, it doesn't matter how people respond to me. But I know that I have, I feel like a fiduciary duty to be honest with people. And I feel like right now it's like, oh, if it's working, it's getting money. Then I'm like, nah, that's not what it is. And I think that what you and your wife do, you found a beautiful way. I'm a super private person. I don't show my daughter online. I show my pops for the half marathon. And I think that the full roundedness is what helps create the trust, right? They see that, okay, he is living his life. He's not only just doing this thing. He doesn't have skeletons in his closet. No, did he? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain things that, like, I think for me that makes me selfish, because I'm thinking about how I show up to the world, and I'm not thinking about the information that I have to offer in a vacuum. And I think that that is the piece that you saying that to me struck something in my heart, that you're right, I am being selfish and I'm not sharing these things because this is what I live and breathe every single day. There's never a moment where I'm not pouring into myself, and there's moments where I want to share things with people, but when you got a 9 to 5, you feeling all motivated after your workout, the creatine, caffeine hit, but now you got to rush to go to work.
Yeah.
So I think it is necessary for me to prioritize these moments of coming here to do this podcast and let people know, like, Rome wasn't built in a day and it also didn't fall in a day. You just need to stack more positive moments than negative moments, and you'll be okay. And also, too, just understand that, like, be intentional in the things that you do, and it'll eventually work out for you. And you're right. This is my commitment. I'm gonna be less selfish.
No one, if they don't know you, they can't flow you, and that literally means that if they don't know who you are, they can't support you. They can't see you. They can't be a part of your atmosphere. Now, you may say, I don't want nobody a part of my atmosphere, and I'm not telling you to be a full-blown content creator either, but I'm just saying use the moments, because we've mentioned a couple moments where it's like, all right, you told me who you are, but what else?
Yeah. And I would say this, like, I do have people that I work with, and I literally enjoy the hell out of it. Like I was telling you, you asked me questions. At no point did I have to go on the internet. I knew all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very free-flowing for me. And one of the things is, people are, excuse my French, people tend to be full of ish.
Okay.
And I think
disagree with you.
One of the biggest things is your unwavering trust in me and me knowing your work ethic. To me, you were doing me a favor by letting me help you. That's how excited I was to help you. And I think that it's just attracting. It's like, I don't want to be Walmart. I'd rather be Neiman Marcus, right? Like, this is a luxury service that you don't have to buy.
That's true.
This is not a catch-all. And I think that understanding that life is math, right? So, you give consultations, you're a lot of like, oh, I'll hit you back up. And then you start training with people, a lot of excuses, and my thing is that when I pray for personality traits, patience, discernment, strength, courage, because when you pray for things, you don't know what the things you're praying for, what's going to come with that. So as I'm, rebuilding my business, I said, God, put the right people that I'm going to do the best for in front of me, right? And I think that that's the thing. It's like, if 1,000 people saw me, maybe 1% of those or 10% of those might be people who I'm going to build a fruitful relationship, and they can fire me in 6 months and tell 10 other people. So now we have a referral funnel going in. And I think the main thing here is I need to give and be okay with the inflow, and then just sort through that. And I think that that's going to be the next step of, the piece of the business for me is that, all right, I just need to show up, be authentic. Don't look at the likes. Don't look at the metrics. Don't look at how many people. It's so hard because it'll have you questioning your self-worth because, like, for example, as I mentioned the Twitter days, I had my shirt off era. Mm-hmm. Shirt off every day, Hennessy bandana. Like the first time I got abs, it was in 2013, and nobody couldn't tell me anything. You know what I'm saying? Actually, 2011, but after I crossed and whatever. But at that moment, now that I'm past that point, I'm like, that's not the most important thing. It might sell, but I'd rather someone connect with me because they're like, man, he's still in shape. He runs. He prays. He has a corporate job. He's co-parenting. Like, those are the things I want people to say why they're hiring me as a trainer, not because look how ripped he is. Yeah. And sometimes you don't get to choose why somebody decide to work with you, because it could be the gateway. The abs could be the gateway to the conversation. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I feel like I have a fiduciary duty to show up here in the world. And being on the internet, it will have you questioning that the foo-foo stuff is doing well, the goofy stuff is doing well, and the legitimate, valuable thing. Like, if I post a shirtless picture, likes go crazy.
Yeah.
I post a movement with a baggy shirt on, I get like 4 people engaging with me, and that could be tough.
It could be demoralizing, and then you see the people in the gyms hanging from the light fixture with the barbells, and it's like that's the stuff that goes viral, and I understand that. What would your ideal client be to you? Like, give me your avatar of the client you're looking for, because it might be someone listening to the podcast that's like, I love what he's saying. I love what he's about, and I want to work with him on a deeper level. I want to weed out people who may not be for you. Yeah. I don't want to weed out anybody, actually. You know what? I'll let him do that, but who would your ideal client, be?
My ideal client
is like going on a date.
Like my ideal client would be someone who has the utmost respect for themselves, and they don't give themselves opportunities to weasel out unduly. Like if you're injured or you legitimately, something came up that prevented you, but just having a commitment, being committed to your commitment, meaning that if you say you're going to do something, it would have to be hell and high water for you not to do that. And what I've noticed is it has to be someone who already's been successful at something else in their life, whether it be your career, entrepreneurship, your relationship. Because at the end of the day, every time we lie to ourselves, we lose self-respect. So I want the client to have high self-respect for themselves, and don't speak in a deprecating way and don't make jokes about yourself in a negative way, because this is not a joke. I think that when people be like, oh, Ozzie probably lifting weights for breakfast. Yeah, I am lifting weights for breakfast. Yeah. Don't want people to feel bad about their desire to reach their goals, because if you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, you can do good. And I think that is what I'm looking for or trying to be available for those people who just need the additional information. I spent at this point 15 years reading books. I have fitness books. I've been certified. I'm listening to fitness books. I'm watching content all day, every day, because it's legitimately something that brings me joy. I feel like that when people say the body is a temple, you think if you're not putting something to defile your body, but you're defiling it by not using it to the full capacity at which you can use it. And I think that we sometimes do not equate how well you take care of yourself as a form of self-love. Because you like, oh, you're going to eat that fried chicken and that waffle, and you're going to drink that alcohol, and you're going to pop bottles. You think that's like somehow opulent. It's not. And especially in our community, sometimes poor financial decisions is a sign of wealth. But when I see someone who has money and they're not in shape, they're not serious to me. Mm-hmm. You might be good at getting money, but that's one thing out of a myriad of things that are also important. So the thing to me is that someone who's willing to be a student and a beginner, your trust for me shows me that like when the connection is there, it's there. You text me any time of day. As soon as the first moment I got, I'm responding because I knew you were just committed. I can't be more invested than you are. You can't be sucking your teeth because I told you to go for a run. That you asked me to tell you when to go run.
Can you imagine you hitting somebody up for advice and you're like, I don't really want to do this. Like, why would you hit them up if you're not going to take the advice? Yeah. I'm not that type of person, so continue, man.
I think that the main thing for me is that people just really going inside and thinking about that why is so cliche, but it's so important. Like at the end of the day, if I tell someone I'm going to do something, I got to do it because I said I'm going to do it. Now, if I said probably, maybe, that's different. That's my way of saying it's probably not going to happen. But if things work out, then I'll do it. So I think it's just someone who's going to be committed. And it's not, I want to look good for a vacation. I want to look good for the family reunion. I want to look good for my high school. It's somebody who's like, yo, this is going to be a lifestyle for me. Because if I can add an extra 7 to 10, 15 years to my dad's life by being an inspiration to him, if I don't make another dollar, I did God's work. That's how I look at that. So this is an opportunity for me is to help other people feel more connected to their family, because we know it's a domino effect, right? Our daughters are going to do what they see. They see us running
in the back. Yo, daddy run, daddy run.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
She's saying you running so she don't got to go to daycare. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is, I realize people do what they see and we become what we intake. So if you want to, let's say, work with me or someone like me, the best thing to do is text your mom or your dad or your homegirl about every single thing. Girl, I did 45 pounds on a goblet squat today. Make it a moment. Celebrate the journey so that you don't have to wait to a finish line to feel like you won. And I think that the biggest piece is the mindset, cliche as it might be, but I already made a decision. I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to prepare food. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to run. I don't want to lift weights. But what's the alternative? And sometimes it's like literally your back is up, but you got to make a back up against the wall scenario in your mind. Like, I am going to get where I want to be no matter what. And if I don't stop, I can't fail. It's only when you stop or you quit, you fail. Oh, something came up. Listen, everybody can go for a walk on a vacation. Actually, walk that liquor off. Walk that Bahama Mama and margarita off.
That's it.
You know, so just knowing that, like, you getting ready to go out of town. You like, hey, Oz, I'm about to go out of town. When should I run? I'm like, okay, well, you don't want to sit on a plane, do this, boom, boom, boom. Here, do this exercise. Then when you get back, do this.
Yep, ran 5 miles on that Friday before the flight.
But because that conversation is happening, you give me an opportunity to help you. If I give you a generic plan, Now that's your excuse to say, well, I was unsure about this and I didn't want to bother you. Nah, bro, text me whenever.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And I'm even teaching people how to use Chat GPT. If you want sure, type your question in Chat GPT and send it to me and I'll be like, nah, that's some BS. Look, even now, whenever someone's asking me a question, I'm like, hey, these are the things you search for on YouTube. Because my goal is not to keep you deaf, dumb, and stupid. It's to empower you to not need me.
To make better decisions.
100%. So that's my avatar of my client, someone who is committed to being intentional with themselves and are not going to let small things block their big blessings. It's one thing you walk in a room and know that you're giving life everything you had. And I might be quoting it wrong, but I think it was John in the Bible. He said at the end of his life, he just want to say, I fought a good fight. That's all I want to be able to say at the end of the day is that I gave it everything that I had, and my intentions were pure. I sleep well at night, not because I have everything I want or not because I was successful. I'm literally doing the best things that I think I have the awareness around. If I don't do something, it's because of awareness. It's not because I don't want to do it or I can't do it. It's awareness. It meaning that there wasn't a strong enough connection to the thing in me actually doing it. So if a person is at least aware of what they're aware and not aware of, and they're operating from whatever context or box they're operating from, now you're in a position to exceed. You can't get someone else's body. You can't get someone else's time. You can't get someone else's access or money. And it's futile to think that you can. So if you have a certain body type, how can I have the best body within the confines of this body? How can I have the best mind in the confines of my human experience thus far? And it's just asking these questions. And I know my shortcomings, and I know that when that iron strikes, it strikes. I hated running. Once I started, I was like, oh, this is why people do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's what it takes. So like you said, I don't want to X anybody out, but this isn't a cheering squad. This is, I'm going to give you information that you can use it. A hammer can be used to build or destroy, but you still have a hammer. You got something. You have an opportunity to change the way you see yourself going forward. And that's my only objective. And all the fads and the ketones and the vegan and the, listen, calories in versus calories out. Effort versus excuses. Mm-hmm. That's what it boils down to. My dad lost 10 pounds and he's 60 years old.
I did my job. So let the people know how they could find you, man, whether it's Instagram or email or website, so that they can reach out to you.
So my email is wellnessnomad@gmail.com. My Instagram is Ozzie. Please feel free to ask me whatever questions you have. But one thing I believe in, reciprocity. If you ask me a question and you know you're feeling motivated, actually DM me when you're not feeling motivated. Because if you'll do it when you're not motivated, when you're motivated, you'll do it. If you do it on a Monday when you're feeling good, and then by Wednesday, I follow up, hey, how's this going?
Nothing,
right? So this is the thing. Time is the one resource that we don't have, and you don't have to have unwavering trust in me. You can actually question everything that I say to you. But the trick is, by you going to try to prove me wrong, you're going to get hit with the learning bug.
Let's go. Appreciate you guys tapping into another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast. I'm going to drop everything about Oz below. His previous episodes, you can learn more about his background, his IG, his email, and just tap in and don't waste his time. If y'all serious, get with him, and we'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. Peace.